we want to welcome you as you're coming on board here tonight to our office hours. And we'll give it a couple of minutes here as folks are coming in, but take a minute if you would while you're coming on board and take a look at the disclaimer here. We have to do this every single time because you need to know that we're going to be giving you some information tonight, but there's also going to be plenty of times when we may say, hey, you need to go back and find and talk to your tax advisor or your attorney or your investment counsel, whoever it is, to help you with more in-depth questions. And in fact, Chuck and I are here to help you tonight, but sometimes people get into the nitty-gritty of their own personal situation. And I have to tell you that likely needs to be done more in a 1-hour meeting that you can easily set up. And it just really depends on where you are. But let's do something real quick here, if you would. We're going to use the Q&A for your questions tonight. So just to get you used to that, why don't you do us a favor, if you would, and go into the Q&A and tell us what grade level your student is in. That would be awesome. And if you want to, the state that you're in, okay? But that would be great. And again, we'll get started here in just a second as a few more people join us. But just take a minute to put that information in the Q&A for us.
And if your student got accepted to their first choice, throw that in there. We love to know where people are looking to go.
Oh yeah, that's great. That would be awesome. We'd like to celebrate with you.
Yeah.
All right, let me do this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a minute. And so let's see what we've got going on here. So we've got 12th grade California, welcome. We got a senior from Washington, excellent. Junior in Houston, hey, glad to have you with us. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, your hometown, right? I have a junior and a freshman. Excellent. Southern California. Oh, choosing between Chapman and San Diego State University. All right. I see a senior in Connecticut. And all right. So again, welcome, a senior from Columbus. It's great to have you with us tonight. If anybody else wants to put that into the Q&A, that would be great. We junior in Washington State. Thank you.
Yep. Please make sure and use the Q&A and not the chat, guys. That'll help if you ever want to see the answers of what we answered or what the question was.
Yeah, and in fact, yeah, thank you, Chuck, for saying that, because folks, we are here to help you tonight as far as answering questions. Welcome from Raleigh, beautiful city there. But one of the things I thought we would do this evening, because we've got folks on different sides of the spectrum, you may or may not know, depending upon if you've got MyCap or just considering MyCap. Welcome from Ohio. You're close to me. I'm in Kentucky, by the way, but it could be a situation where you're trying to figure out the next step that you're going to do with the MyCap software and everything. So before we do anything, what I wanted to do is share with you this screen. Chuck, can you see this okay?
I just see you right now. We haven't shared
me.
yet.
Thank you, sir. That's exactly what I need. Here we go. So folks, okay, beautiful. Let me walk you through what you're looking at here. So the very first thing is, for those of you that are on this office hours tonight that are DIYers, and by the way, there's not a thing wrong with that, okay? I do a lot of that myself. I love watching YouTube, fixing things here and there when I can, but I also know when I need to bring in an expert. And so that's what happens here. First of all, if you are indeed a DIYer, we've got this whole group of things. First is the MyCap software. As you probably know, you've got the ability to set that up by going to mycap.collegeaidpro.com. Again, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. Chuck, if you could even put that in the chat box, that would be awesome. And the software then allows you to have up to 3 colleges without any cost. Now, after that, you do have the option to do some upgrades, but also from the DIY side, we've got office hours like we're doing tonight. There's also a Facebook group, not sure if you know about that, and then also the CAP YouTube channel. So all of those are free resources that we provide. And in fact, that YouTube channel is full of videos of past webinars that have been done. In addition to that, let's say that you want to take a step further, which is that you need some help. You actually know that you need to get some help. That would be doing something like our valedictorian level. That's where you get the software for a full year. Plus you get a 1-hour meeting with one of our CAP experts. That may be Chuck. That also could be me. And here's the good news, by the way, when you do that, traditionally that's $299, but you can go ahead and use OH15 for office hours 15. So capital O, capital H 15, and that will get that discounted down to $254. And then for those of you that are just throwing your hands up in the air and are going, oh my gosh, we have no idea how to start with this. Maybe this is your guinea pig student, your first one that's going through this. Then what we're dealing with is the Wake Me When It's Over. And that truly is a situation where we can help you with the financial aid. If you are not working with someone that's already an independent counselor, by the way, we love our independent counselors, but if you don't have that kind of relationship, we get a lot of admissions questions. So that could be a question that might come up. And also financial aid or admissions help just in general. We can guide you through that. And don't forget, again, that OH15 will get you that discount for all the services that you're looking at purchasing. Okay, we'll send this out to you. This particular call to action will come to you. In fact, what I'll do is I'll copy this and put this in the chat box here in just a second. But tell you what, if you've got some questions, which we hope you do tonight, let's go ahead, Chuck, and let's start taking a look at some of those. Okay.
Yeah, let's take a swing at these first two. It says, I tried to delete a school and was not able to. Can you provide guidance? I'm going to make an assumption that's on the FAFSA, but I'm not sure. You should be able to just click delete, and actually, when the school is, then research for a new school name, school code, state, depending on whatever you use to find it, and put it in there. Dan, do you think that's faster, or do you think they're maybe talking about MyCap?
I'm thinking maybe MyCap. It could be that maybe what they did was they set up that free account. And folks, you're absolutely right. The one surprise that you get, and I just mentioned it a minute ago, is that you can put up to three colleges in there, but once you do that, it's locked up. So there's nothing that you can do as far as any addition or subtraction of those colleges. That's really where you would want to consider that upgrade. Now, so here's one thing that I didn't mention. There is what's referred to as the scholar level upgrade. That's $149, again, less the 15%. And I know this for a fact, it drops it down to $126.65. So yeah, so that's a nice little discount there for you to be able to do that. But here's the difference. You get access to all the colleges, every college within our database, and the ability to look at those schools, to do other things. So we'll show that to you in just a minute here, by the way.
Yeah, as great as the free 3 is, that scholar program opens up a whole new world of searching, especially if you're a junior in that process at this point. How to fill out the FAFSA if the student only has guardians. So that's a unique situation. Basically, it's based on the dependency questions, and there's a whole series of them. Some of them are going to ask things like, are you in military service? Do you have any children of your own? It may ask some questions around homelessness. You basically have to answer those honestly, and it will then determine if you are dependent or independent, not. Those cases can be really unique. I'm working with a young lady right now who has not been adopted, has not been emancipated, and only lives with her great aunt. In her case, she replied to the homelessness question with yes, because if her great aunt decided not to allow her to live there, she has literally nowhere else to go. And that will determine your question. So it's going to be very unique depending on your situation. You can also Google dependency questions FAFSA and go through, and it will give you some guidance on how to answer those.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. Hey, by the way, folks, I am not Peg Kehoe, just so we're clear. I just realized her name is popping up here. She is a dear friend of ours, dear partner within College Aid Pro, does an incredible job with this. And also her picture pops up. She's much prettier than I am, by the way. But I'm not going to mess with trying to get that out of here right now.
She's also known as the fairy godmother of financial aid.
She sure is. That is exactly right. Yes, she is. All right, let me go on to this next one here. Does UCLA ever give financial aid to out-of-state or merit aid? Great question, tough situation to get. But let me tell you something. So I've been working with families for 17 years now as an independent counselor. And I will tell you that I did indeed have a student actually from Kentucky who got a scholarship at UCLA. That was a unique thing. It was a former actor who happened to be from Kentucky who sponsors a scholarship at UCLA. But it was pretty significant. I want to say it was like $20,000 or $15,000 or $20,000, but it was also a little bit of a surprise that it was like a one-year number. So anyway, just something to keep in mind there, that it's not guaranteed. Now, out-of-state financial aid is really tough to get in the California schools, really tough to get. Why is that? Because they have so many students within the state that are applying for their financial aid. So they're going to give it to in-state students by far. So don't count on it. That would be my advice. What do you think, Chuck?
Very similar. Texas is very similar to the California schools. They accept the top 6% and the amount of kids wanting to get in and go there versus what they can accept. So the same situation. I think it's not unheard of, but not likely is how I'd put it.
All right.
I'll take a swing at this one. This is one of those ones where you might very well need, depending on what you think of my answer, might need to book an hour. Student has good ACT, good grades, got into Dartmouth with good package for freshman year. And the second year, they reduced the package, no change in the FAFSA. Does that mean they give an excellent package to attract good students and underhand in the second year when they know they don't have good options but pay the higher cost of attendance? I would say that there's a lot we don't know about this. In general, when you get a package your freshman year, you need to inquire if it's for all 4 years. And assuming that there are no changes in your EFC, as long as you get that kind of in writing or an email in advance, or have the original award letter that says whether it's for 4 years or 1 year, you should be okay. So it seems like there's probably some information we don't have or aren't privy to. But in general, I would say most awards are for 4 years, and they're typically noted if they're not on the award letter you get.
Yeah, I understand you're surprised on that. There is a thing in the industry called a bait and switch that sometimes happens. And there's no doubt that there are some schools that play that game. I'm surprised that the Dartmouth would reduce it. So I'm like Chuck. I think you got to go back and have a conversation with those folks if you haven't, to say, okay, explain to me what happened between this year and last year and let them tell you the details. Did you suddenly disclose something that somehow didn't get picked up last year? We've seen this before where somebody has like a rollover, an IRA rollover or a 401k. They change jobs, so there's a rollover from one to the next, and suddenly there's a bump in that. But there's got to be something that happened.
Yeah. Start by looking at your SAR from each year and compare those numbers.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good idea. Because those are the facts. Those are the numbers you had the year before. And it's not uncommon for a family to have different income and asset situations from year to year. So maybe that had some impact. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you listed your home equity different from 1 year to the next. It's just hard to say. So like Chuck said, there's some items that are missing there. Okay, what about comparing the financial aid letters for 2 schools? One that I already have listed in my cap and one that I do not have listed there. Can it be done? Yeah.
If you have the scholar.
Yeah, if you've got the scholar level, actually, even if you've got the free, by the way, you do. So here's the critical part about this. On the free level, maybe this is a good time to open up the for a second here. What do you think, Chuck?
Always open it up when we get the chance.
All right, man. So let's do this. Let me get in here first. And while we're doing this, though, one of the things that you have to know is that the free level of the platform does indeed give you the ability to go ahead and put in, again, those 3 schools. But here's the point. When you're then ready to, in the future, put in your financial aid offers, it has to be those same 3 schools. Okay, so that's a specific thing that comes into play that you just have to know. But what I'm showing you here on my platform right now is this is the scholar level. So I want to be very clear. You can see that I've got just a ton of schools that have popped up on here. But folks, I got to tell you something. This software, and Chuck, I know you're in the same boat with this software, is a game changer. There's nobody doing what we're doing. There are some folks out there that claim that, hey, we'll show you what financial aid offers look like from other schools. But not only do we give you the ability to put in the schools. So what I'm talking about here is as we go through this list of schools here, and you can see some of the schools I've got in here. I'm going to pick on Miami University because it happens to be about 45 minutes from where I live, up in Oxford, Ohio. Beautiful little school. It's a public institution that's referred to as the Public Ivy of Ohio. But anyway, in fact, it's in the colleges that change lives, if any of you have ever heard of that stuff out there. But what happens is not only do we show the 1 year numbers, but we also go into details about the 4 year numbers of this school. And so it's all about what your family budget is to pay for college and then how the loans work down here. Okay. In other words, what's it going to cost extra for you to go to the school? I think we can all agree if you're making almost $3,900 take home pay as a computer and information sciences major, you can probably afford a monthly loan payment of $527. But for some of these others, it's not so clear, right? 948, 1521 here, 1262, which is why you've got caution running across the top. But so here's what is just amazing about the software. We've got this translate and compare. And what that means is that you can put college after college in here. Again, I'm showing you the scholar level, but I'm just giving you this one example where we've got a financial aid offer letter that came in here. And we put in here, this is just a sample, but you can see the kind of details that are in here. And then what happens is that the program actually says, okay, based on where you are with this, let's understand and translate this thing over. So I'm just hitting a button right here, and it's going to go ahead and do its magic. So what it's doing is behind the scenes, it's taking a look at this financial aid offer, and it's trying to fill in the boxes as far as the specifics. Now, we do not include Parent Plus loans because, quite frankly, Chuck and I and the rest of our CAP folks, we can't stand the fact that they package these in here. right? And truly, though, it's all about trying to see everything else. And so what it does is it shows you what the cost of attendance is. In this case, we've got $10,000 worth of merit-based scholarships that were captured. This particular school at the time at least didn't show the federal direct student loans, but that could be there in the future. That's something that the school offers. But here's the point. This is where things get amazing, because what we also do is we take it one step further. We will evaluate your offer and we'll let you know whether or not we think that there are grounds for you to appeal. For all of you that are on this call that have seniors right now, you probably hopefully know about this, but I'm going to take it even one step further. For all of you, what you may not realize is that right now we are at College Aid Pro is going to give away a $1,000 scholarship for anybody who uploads a financial aid offer into the system before April the 6th. That's your golden ticket. That's the ability to get in. Isn't that cool?
Let's clarify that. You're registered to potentially win. Not everybody
potentially win.
Not everybody who puts a letter in gets the scholarship. There's only one.
Thank you, Chuck, for that clarification. That's exactly right. You are in the drawing for one person to win, but I don't know. I think the odds of $1,000 scholarship would be pretty enticing, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yes, thank you for clarifying that. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to have your MyCap. You have to be a senior. You have to upload at least one financial aid offer into the system. If you've got multiples, go ahead and put multiples in there if you're a scholar level or whatever, scholar valedictorian.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dan, but honestly, that $1,000 scholarship is nothing compared to the information you get for a potential appeal. A successful appeal could be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in addition to $1,000 scholarship. So really, that's where the value is. Can you appeal and can you get a better deal?
Absolutely. And look, here's an example, right? So the Miami University, it says here, appeal potential less likely. Now, why is that? Because it says down here, the award amount is higher than what we expect. And in fact, it goes on to say, congratulations, you've received a better financial aid package than we anticipated. And in fact, you can still appeal, meaning you can go back and do this, but it does not look like the school is trying to shortchange you. Isn't that nice? So what you're going to see down here at the bottom is our breakdown. Is there a low chance, a less likely, a strong, or a very strong chance that you should appeal the offers that come through? And I want to be very clear, though, it all comes down to, did you put fantastic information in the top? Meaning, do you have the accurate data points when it comes to your financial situation and your students' academics situation? So again, just why we're super excited about this new tool. Nobody else is doing this, folks. I can tell you it is hot. People are picking up on this and going, wow, this is a game changer. So, all right, I'm just going to leave that up for a minute. Let's go back into some more questions here.
Sure. My husband and I have been automatically depositing $50 a month into savings accounts for each son. The accounts are in their names, but attached to my husband's bank accounts because they're minors. Will we have to mention savings on the FAFSA? If so, it sounds like it's too late for my junior, but when my freshman becomes a junior, I'm assuming we should temporarily move his savings into something else. So this is a great question. And actually, you're okay. When you complete the FAFSA, assets are as of that time and point in time. So you have a lot of options. You could spend the money. You could transfer the money to a 529. You could make it a joint account where only 50% would count. Income from taxes would be the prior year, but your assets are at the time of completing the FAFSA.
Excellent. All right. Next question. I have the valedictorian package. Trying to calculate the EFC, the software does not seem to have my category for taxes. Filed 2022, married, filing separately. You're in the middle of a divorce. I filed January 2022, will be completed summer 2023. We sold a home in March 2022. Wow, there's just a lot of detail here.
Yeah, I think that one's going to need an hour.
Yeah, you know what? So you've already got the valedictorian, so you already thought ahead, which is fantastic. I think what you need to do here is just go ahead and book that hour with us so that we can try to help you figure out what's going on there. I will tell you that part of it is, so how did you list yourself? Did you still list yourself as married? That's probably, again, why the options are not popping up the way that you need to. But I would play around with that a little bit. And this really leads to an important conversation anyway, Chuck, which is, how do you deal with using the software with a divorced family? There's no doubt that because of the need to protect each individual's privacy, specifically on their financial details, that each parent needs to open up their own account. Now, part of that could be that one sets it up just to do their calculations for their expected family contribution, or as we know, it's changing to the student aid index. The other part, though, is the other family could use it as far as also helping to build the college list. So it just depends on how in depth you both want to get into the conversation, but you absolutely need to have separate accounts to be able to work through this. Again, for total transparency for yourselves, but also to protect your individual information.
And you may want to, one thing I'll throw out there is you may want to run it twice, right? You could run it as you're currently married because your divorce hasn't been finalized, and you could run it as divorced and have the two separate outcomes and understand the differences. So something like that to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Toby, let's see what we got here. My cap says we should appeal at Chapman as their merit came in a bit under the average. Should the letter of correspondence come from our son? What's a rough outline of what it should say? So, yeah, I think we all agree that the student should always drive the process. And then I would say things you'd want to consider are, where did your son's GPA and test scores fall within Chapman's kind of incoming historical freshman class? If you're in the top 25%, you might be able to mention that. You can't just throw out and say, hey, my cap said I should appeal because that nobody's going to care about that. But you need to build a narrative that shows the benefits that your student has done. Where has your son excelled? What grades has he done? Why is he better than average? That's where I would start.
Totally agree. And again, it does need to come from your son initially. Remember, your son needs to convince Chapman that he's going there. The way I put it is that every single school that your student has applied to is their number one school. And so you absolutely need to make sure that he can tell a compelling story as to why he thinks that he should get more money. And also,
oh, sorry, Dan.
That's okay, Chuck. Go ahead.
I guess I'm awfully excited tonight. That's like the third time I've cut you off, so I apologize.
That's all right, man.
I was just going to say, if you have other awards from similar schools, you'd want to include those in the conversation or in the narrative.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's the best thing. If you've got comparable colleges that absolutely gave him more money, use it. Use that as leverage for that conversation. Okay, so this one's getting a little bit nitty gritty here. I can only give you, so it says here, do you have any input on financial merit aid for Baylor, FSU, or Penn State? The only one I can speak to is Baylor because I have a family that's going through this right now. And in their particular case, what happened was that they actually were hoping for much more need-based as well as merit aid. But don't you know that we had them appeal? They sent a letter to them, and Baylor came back with a letter or an email reply stating, hey, what you don't know is we've changed our formula. We changed the way that we give out our merit scholarships. Now, need-based is a different story. That's something where they absolutely have grounds to go back to that school and appeal, which is what they're doing. But when it came to the merit, it was, we've changed the rules, we're handing our money out differently, and there was nothing that could be done, even though they thought that they were going to get a prior scholarship. I will tell you, folks, you have to know that the phrase goes like this: 100% of the shots you don't take don't go in. 100% of the appeals that you don't make don't lead to any money. And so it's not always going to work. It's going to more likely work, which is why we're really bullish about our ability to help coach families through the appeals process and the letters. And we've got success stories. I could tell you one heck of a success story that I had just this year with a family. But the point is that it really does come down to the difference between private schools and public schools and knowing the important details about those schools. So it's important that you go ahead and that you've got the facts so that you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, good stuff. And yeah, I had the same thing with Baylor. They've changed some of their automatic scholarships to a more competitive or holistic review, and they've asked for more information. They're always one to ask for more information. So that's that. But on University of Arizona, our next one, do you know if it's worth appealing to the University of Arizona? Ironically enough, we were on a call. I think Dan and I were both on the same call earlier or late last week. And one of the other college aid pros, a wonderful lady who's way smarter than me, shared a story of how they appealed to the University of Arizona and used an offer from Arizona State and got a win. And it was significant. So I'd say, like Dan just said, the shots you don't take will never go in. Give it a try, especially if you have a good narrative and a good story.
Perfect. Let's see. I got off track here. Chuck, hang on a second.
Yeah. I can do it while you're getting caught up. This one's from Jennifer. My student received a scholarship and a grant. Can you rely on grants to be there every year. It depends, I guess, if it's a need-based grant and if your financial situation changes. I would refer you to the award letter and see if it says specifically if it's a 1 year or 4 year award. And if you have questions, you need to call and ask and get it in the discussion. And let me rephrase that. Have your student call and ask and make sure that you get clarity on that. So that's the most important thing. Every situation is going to be unique. We don't have enough information to tell you for sure. But if you call and ask and they tell you one thing, it'll probably be consistent and true.
Yeah. If you can even do it better, get it in writing. For sure, get it in writing. All right. The question was, I'm supporting my parents financially, but they're not U.S. citizens, so I can't claim on my tax return. Is this a good reason to appeal for more money? Thank you. Sure. Absolutely. You've got the capability to go about asking for additional money in a case like that. It can't hurt to explain how much you're sending overseas or whatever to help your family out. So yes, I would absolutely bring that up.
All right. Thank you. Miami was one I wanted to compare with Rochester Institute of Technology. So your example was a winner.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. After filling out our MyCap profile, it looks like we won't qualify for financial aid. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that probably means need-based financial aid. Our current junior is only interested in out-of-state schools, either Southern California or New England. What is a good strategy for finding an affordable college? What are some schools in those regions that are more generous with merit scholarships? That's just a tool with the valedictorian level of MyCap that you can do the advanced search, put in your GPA and test scores and the region or states that you want to go to, and it will bring up essentially all the schools and potential scholarships. So that would be my suggestion. There's no better way than using MyCap, the advanced search, to get that information.
Yeah, no, you're so right, Chuck. That's the best part about that, right? Is it's got, for example, that the option at the bottom to go with colleges that will only give scholarships to your student, guaranteed scholarships, or that hit those certain college funding ranges and things. So yeah, absolutely use that advanced search.
That funding range is, in my opinion, the best tool for families. Look, I work as a financial advisor, and managing risk is one of the biggest things. And the most dangerous words we hear are, if you get in, we'll make it happen. Search for schools that you can afford up front and save yourself the heartbreak later of potentially not being able to afford it. Use that advanced search.
Yes, absolutely. So my child's been given a full tuition presidential scholarship. Congratulations. Is it greedy to appeal for aid to help with room and board if we've had a job loss or a huge loss of income? No, look, your circumstances are your circumstances. The college is still going to question how recently that happened. And then they're going to expect a paperwork trail to prove what's going on, because don't forget, financial aid is given out. I'm talking about financial aid here. Need-based financial aid is given out and reevaluated year after year. You have to complete the FAFSA year after year, and or the CSS profile if the college still continues to require that. Now, when it comes to a full presidential scholarship, that sounds to me like merit-based. And so the only question would be whether they could help with some or all of the room and board from more of a need-based, if it indeed you can prove that to them. Doesn't hurt to ask.
We've set aside about $60K of 529 funds for education. The rest of college expenses will come from loans. As a freshman, would it be better to use the 529 first before taking loans, maybe in sophomore or junior year? This is a question that I think definitely probably needs an hour with a pro. But the one thing I will tell you that you really need to be aware of is the federal direct student loans are use it or lose it. So if you don't take it your freshman year, that's $5,500 essentially you can't borrow later in the process. Keep in mind the federal direct loans are use it or lose it as you're making your plans. And if you need help, potentially consider an hour within one of the College Aid pros.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Give them the facts and let them help you work your way through that. So you were on a financial aid webinar with a college my son is interested in attending. I guess the first thing we need to know is that a private school or a public school. They talked about rolling financial aid offers next year because the FAFSA is changing. Yes, it absolutely is. For those of you that may not know, there's some huge changes getting ready to happen with the FAFSA. It's called the FAFSA Simplification Act that goes into effect this fall. Now, what we cannot tell you is when that's going to go into effect, because right now, even the federal government is a little bit concerned as to whether it's going to happen, be able to happen on October the 1st like it should, or whether it'll be November the 1st, November the 15th. Who knows? It could be December. It could even be January the 1st before it happens. But you say again, so they say all non-federal aid will stay the same next year. That's very kind of them that they're doing that. They're giving time for the colleges and also kind of society to catch up to that. Is that common at most colleges? Here's the point. Nobody knows. None of us know really what these colleges are going to do. It is a hot topic. The Kentucky AC Associations, which is the Kentucky Association of College Admission Counselors, the Kentucky, the state financial aid officers, all these folks are getting together and they're all trying to figure it out because it's a moving target right now. And there's a lot of things that are going to be determined between now and when it goes live. It's probably an individual basis with each college. You're just going to have a conversation with them about it. It's nice. I'd love to know what school it is that mentioned that to you. That would be good for us to know too. So thanks for your question.
And I just added in the chat a link to our change.org petition. It was started by Matt Carpenter to oppose this and try and make things more affordable for kind of middle-class families with more than one kid. It applies to a lot of people. Feel free to take a look at it, watch the video, and maybe support it. And Dan, I was pulling up that change.org. Did you mention the potential delay in FAFSA opening next year?
I did, yeah, because it really is a big deal, man. It's hard to know when they're going to actually officially roll it out.
Yep. Sorry about that. I was looking that up and
no, I'm glad you. Yeah, thanks for grabbing that petition. It's good. And by the way, folks, please support that petition. That's the only way we're going to get enough people to raise a stink up there in DC to try to have them at least talk about what's going on with it all.
Should I apply for financial aid even if I got the scholarship? Because still I need to cover the remaining amount. Getting mixed answers between the admin office and the financial aid office that says financial aid would reduce the scholarship. I suppose it's possible that they could reduce a scholarship by the amount or the financial aid by need-based aid by the amount of the scholarship. But typically in general, you get need-based or merit-based, typically not both. So there's a lot of information I don't know here. I would say maybe bring the award letter and book an hour with a pro and see if they can help clarify that for you.
Yeah, that's good. So my child was offered a provost and a presidential merit scholarship from 2 public schools. Can I use these to leverage with a private school? It really depends on what the public schools are. How prominent are they? Are we talking UNC Chapel Hill? Are we talking University of Michigan? Places that are really hard to get into that are public institutions that kind of act as private schools because their admit rate is so daggone low. So maybe, the answer would be maybe, because it's going to depend on whether those schools look at those schools as competition or from a leveraging standpoint. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I agree. I went to the University of Nebraska where I like to say the N stands for knowledge. So they're probably not going to accept my challenge very often.
Yeah.
All right. Filed jointly in 2022, now separated, not legally, having 2 different households. FAFSA 2024 highest income parent will file the application. My question is, how do I separate income and taxes? Because jointly and calculated by software. You'll just have to reach out to your accountant or do it yourself. There's not a lot of magic bullets in that case. You have the choice to use the IRS link and appeal, or you can try to separate it out in advance. That's going to be a personal choice, but you'll have to get support from an accountant to do that, would be my suggestion.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I recognize that your team has some excellent professionals. Thank you, folks. But can you direct us on to the expert for the schools in the Boston area, Tufts, Northeastern, BC, so I can book an appointment with that individual? I don't know, Chuck, who are you thinking? Who's coming to mind for you?
I'm thinking Ryan, probably.
Yeah, I would agree. It would probably be Ryan for sure. Ryan's just got an incredible history as far as doing that. Although, you know what? Matt Carpenter also would probably be outstanding if you can get in to see him because he's a busy guy. But yeah, I would say either Ryan or Matt would be your go-to guys. Although, you know what? There's other guys within our group too that have had experience with those schools too.
Yeah, well, Ryan's financial aid director at Harvard Medical School. Josh is financial aid at MIT. Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to be able to help you. And if not, just keep in mind that all the college aid pros have access to each other. So I think you'll get a great result no matter who you book with.
Yeah. So this next question is coming up again, which is any idea on merit based on Penn State or FSU? I don't know, but I think you've already gotten your answer. Both are giving nothing on merit aid. Why is that? Because they're big universities with lots of incoming freshmen, and they just don't have to give out merit aid to attract enough kids to come to their school. It's just the truth, folks. That's why the MyCap software is such a big deal, is because it's trying to help you get clarity on that. And even then, look, you have to know something that we can't control. It's called the human element. Okay, somebody is going to sit behind a desk and they're ultimately going to evaluate your student compared to everybody else that's coming in. Anyway, it's a big deal. Oh man, this next one.
Yeah, and keep in mind on that what Dan was just saying on there's a human element, but remember those people admitting the students are admitting a class, not an individual.
Yeah.
So a lot of that depends on it too. How do they compare to students in their own high school? How does their high school compare to other high schools? How do they have a unique talent that they want in that class? Is your student from a state that would represent all 50 states by chance? There's so many variables that go into it. So don't get discouraged. Don't think your students being blackballed or something. A lot of coincidences go into these decisions and you should feel good. But we do have a big one with a ton of details here.
It's too much for us to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Folks, this question's you're going to have to schedule 1 hour with us to be able to do it. Appreciate all the time you took to put in these details, but my goodness. All right.
I sign up for the higher level of my tab. Is it correct that we have it for a year? So yes, if you sign up, you get it for a year, right? There's no question about that.
You get it for a full year. Yeah. So the free version, you get it forever, as far as I know, but the Scholar or the valedictorian are both locked in for a full year for the software. And then, folks, it only goes to $4.99 a month after that. Think about your trips to Starbucks or wherever you go and eat. That's a nothing cost for a dynamite tool for you to have.
Yeah, and you can change the names and the details at any time. So if you're switching between students, that shouldn't be a problem.
No. All right, next one. I'd like to appeal the offer from Quinnipiac with the offer from Drew University. Okay, I know you mentioned this would be a good strategy for competing schools, but I'd like to ask, in your opinion, would Drew be a good offer to appeal with? Hey, it's another private school. Something's better than nothing. You go on, in addition, my daughter's applied to Clark and so forth. Here's the thing. Whenever you make an appeal, you got to go with what you've got. You've got to use the tools that you have and or the knowledge that you have about the other school. We've even seen it before where somebody went in and used those net price calculators, which we don't love, by the way, but because they're often very deceptive as far as the numbers. They use that as leverage to go back and say, hey, your own net price calculator said that my student was going to get this much money based on these facts. Why did they get less? And turn every rock over and use everything that you can to try to work through that.
If we sign up for the valedictorian package, can we break up the hour-long consultation into 2 half hours? No, it's going to be a 1 hour and you just got to do the best you can. I'm a total newbie and not sure if I have enough information or questions to fill up the whole hour right away. What I'd find with that, from my experience, is that once you get in and start asking questions, you'll come up with more questions and the professional that you're talking with will be able to read the tea leaves and tell you a little bit more. So I don't think have to worry about your hour being wasted.
I don't think so either. And look, what I would encourage you to do is just think it through. You would be surprised, folks, how many times we're on a call with somebody and the next thing you know, an hour is blown by because of the number of questions. Because it's always, hey, I've got just one more question for you. I've got just one more question for you. Because what happens is a question leads to another question, leads to another question. It happens all the time. Appreciate the fact that you're in line with our answer. You said any recommendation on the person to set up appointments on schools in Utah, Washington, California.
Yeah, guys, hey, on this note, there's not going to be a best person in every area of the country. I don't want to be short or inconsiderate. I know you guys are looking for the best setup for your parents. I have 2 kids. I'm exactly the same way. But I promise whoever you get through CAP will be super helpful. So from now on, if you don't get an answer on a question like that, don't take it personally. Everybody is going to be an expert and be able to help you great.
Yeah, that's right on.
In order to appeal for the financial aid, one of the state colleges is saying we need to enroll. How do I deal with this? No, if you enroll, you're not going to get any aid or any. I shouldn't say you're not going to. That's probably inappropriate, but life is all about leverage. And the second you enroll, you've given up all your leverage. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, what a bogus idea. They're going to force you to enroll to then appeal. That's not the way the game goes, folks. That's not at all the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, and quite frankly, with the new FAFSA Simplification Act, it specifically says that everybody, which by the way, they always have had this, but everybody has the ability to appeal a financial aid offer that they get. And so the fact that they're trying to tie that to that, I'd like to know that school, because that's not the way the system's supposed to work. Yeah. And in fact, if you want to, I'll put this in the box, but if you ever want to send us more of an anonymous email you can always send it to support at College Aid Pro, just to let us know who these schools are. Remember, you're helping us as much as we're helping you. Our organization does everything we can to do the research and to dive into these schools, but sometimes you get surprises. That's a surprise to me, I'll tell you.
I would definitely like everybody to also consider that they're just like any other business. There's a high level of expertise, variability in these people. So if you call and get an answer like that, it might make sense to wait an hour, call back, see if you get a second person. If you got Bob the first time, see if you get Joe the second time and ask the question again. They could have just been having a bad day. They could have misunderstood your question. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's good. Shoot, that even happens with the FAFSA hotline.
Yeah. How do we know which colleges are safe ranking when we want to use competing offers to try and get a better financial offer? Dan's touched on this a bunch already. You just got to go with what you have, right? I know when I work with families, I encourage them to apply between 10 and 15 schools with a nice mix of public and privates and schools that are competing. So we're trying to set that up in advance to position ourselves well for appeals. But depending on what your situation is, you just use the ones you have and try to create the best, most favorable narrative and explain why your student is great.
Perfect. All right, twins situation, same GPA and SAT. Wow, that's got to be interesting, huh? Is it better for twins to apply for different colleges in order to get a better financial aid package? Let's start with the twins first. How do they feel about that? Because look, I'm working with a set of twins right now. By the way, every year, I bet you I've worked with a set of twins. I've even had a couple of sets of quads that I've worked with over the years, and triplets as well. So the deal is that they should give a fair financial aid package for each child, regardless of whether they're twins. And yes, there are some colleges out there that will favorably look at that, and they actually may give you a better package because they realize you've got two of them going to college at the same time. And to me, that's an opportunity. Specifically, I want to be very clear here with the private colleges, where there may be some additional details out there as far as what you can do, where you may be able to actually have a frank conversation with those financial aid officers and see what they can offer you. So.
Again, the support email is just support@collegeaidpro.com for those of you asking. Do you have any information on Canadian universities? Can I add one to your application? I don't think there's any Canadian universities in the universe, are there, Dan?
Yeah, in the MyCap world, we don't do any Canadian or international schools at all. So it's only US based. Any idea how the University of Michigan responds to need-based? I have a feeling we've got somebody who keeps asking the same kinds of questions. Really don't. We'll tell you, I do have an opinion on this one. If you're an out-of-state student trying to get need-based aid at the University of Michigan, good luck, because Michigan is specifically focused on providing as much need-based aid to their own in-state students as they are out-of-state students. And that's not uncommon, by the way, folks. The public schools, you're going to find some very few exceptions to that. Sometimes I get some surprises. I got a surprise this last year with the University of Pittsburgh, who gave a pretty significant financial aid offer. And I don't know why. Back to what Chuck said a few minutes ago, it could be that their dean of admissions said, we're going after these particular types of students. This is what I'm getting told we need in our school. We need another oboe player. We need another lacrosse player. We need these kinds of folks. We need another anthropology major. And those kinds of dynamics do indeed impact the incoming freshman class. Good or bad, that does happen.
Yeah. And again, in the MyCap software, there is some information regarding percent of need met with grants. So that is some of the information that's used to determine, do you have a good appeal, a poor appeal, somewhere in the middle. So making sure you understand that information is relevant as well. Looks like a correction to another one. How do you know schools have the same general rankings? Generally, I would look at the sports conference they're in. Do they play sports against each other? That's probably the easiest. Otherwise, it's just a general feeling and rankings situation. Hey, if you're looking at Stanford, you got to look at schools like Northwestern and not South Dakota State, but it's all sports conference related, academics related, and just go from there.
And by the way, thank you for putting on here. It was the University of Miami that they were talking about. So let's be very clear. University of Miami is a private institution. And you know what that means? That means they can set the rules. They can set the rules on how they hand out their money. And so that's unfortunately, it's incredible to think they're going to wait until June or July to deal with appeals after you've already had to make a decision of a lifetime to go to a school that's, I don't know, $70,000, $80,000 per year. That they're, I guess what that says to me is if they don't have a decent enough offer on the front end, I don't know that I'd be putting myself into that kind of jeopardy.
Great point. Schools are intentionally waiting to the last minute for admissions decisions, so that gives us less time for appeals. Some schools are saying we won't know admissions decisions till second or third week of April and have to make a decision just a week or two later. Yeah, that's an unfortunate impact of this process. I think depending on the schools you're applying to, it could be better or worse. I wish we had something to make the process easier or a magic bullet to solve all your solution or problems. But unfortunately, you just have to make the best of the situation you're dealt and use the information you have. Good luck, and I hope that helps. But you're not alone. And if you have specific questions, we are here. You're welcome to reach out to us.
So my daughter's in the 8th grade. Congratulations for starting early, by the way. And I have the Scholar Plan. Good for you. So you've got full access to the software. What do you recommend as far as which plan I should utilize each year leading up to junior year? Should we get the top valedictorian plan in sophomore year or junior year? So here's the thing. It's hard for me to answer that, for Chuck and I to answer, because we don't know your situation. We don't know what's going to happen over the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, right? Changes in finances, changes in marital status, changes in all kinds of stuff that could impact you. You'll know when it's the right time to do the upgrade, to look at hiring us for a 1-hour consultation to help coach you through it, because by then you're getting such a great head start in this process that you'll have a series of questions that you're trying to figure out. And here's the other thing. The rules of the game will probably change even over that span of time when it comes to the colleges. We know the price is going to change, and you'll be in a good spot with that.
And the only thing I'd add there is I think the year you start, you want to get an idea of what your family EFC or SAI is going to be. That's going to dictate a lot of your questions about need-based aid. And then just start building a good school list that you can use when you are ready to dive in with both feet. Speaking of surprises, I never knew that state schools admit first, then follow with financial aid package, possibly weeks later. Yeah, so you'll probably get your acceptance letter, depending on the school. It could be as early as January. Financial aid award letters sometimes generally come out around March or spring break. There's a lot of different times by different schools. You just got to make the best of your situation.
This next one, it's going to really need to schedule 1 hour with us because you've got some details on here. You just really do. Got a lot of, so I'm going to move on to the other one here. What's this? So you're asking me a question here that we can't answer, which is that you're asking about the particulars on your students. Specifically, you're saying light on extracurriculars. I don't know. There's no way to know because it depends on the schools that you're even considering for your students. So unfortunately, we just can't give you any advice on something like that. That's again where you need to book an hour with somebody.
Chuck made a comment in the beginning, I guess I better take this one, about a joint bank account between the student and parent being split 50-50 on the FAFSA. Can you elaborate? Parent assets and student assets are assessed at different rates. If it's a joint account, I make the assumption that it's a split 50-50 and you can have basically divide the assets and have them assessed at the parent rate for the parent's 50% and the child's rate for the child's 50%. I hope that makes sense.
So this next one is not uncommon. Actually, I was unemployed during fourth quarter 2021 and most of 2022 and had to use some of my retirement savings towards household expenses this year. That happens where families have to tap into stuff like that. Shows as income on my 2022 tax return. Yeah, I totally understand that. How will colleges look at this on my son's year 2 financial aid award? So they're going to look at it as income, but you've got a justifiable reason to be able to go and have a conversation with them about that because it was a one-time distribution that was necessary to keep your family afloat. If I were you, I would make sure that you've got documentation. That's the key to all this stuff, which is when it comes down to proving to them what's happened in your situation, but that you'll be able to provide that to them to show them what was going on. And don't be afraid if you even have to, if you've got this kind of information, to give them an idea of what the expenses look like, okay? What your household expenses were. You've got to prove it to them, that you didn't just use that money to go on a vacation or something like that, which I know you didn't. And then also, should I appeal my son's financial aid award for this year? If it shows fourth quarter, you could. It just depends on what your circumstances were then compared to now. Remember, the whole problem with the financial aid form is it's looking at 2 years prior. The way things are today may not be the same as where they were 2 years ago. And you may be being penalized for higher income, because remember, that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about asset values. We're talking about the income values. but you may be penalized for that back then. So again, did you submit those forms at that time? At least have the conversation with the financial aid officer and let them tell you whether or not they think that there's a possibility there for an appeal. Okay. Worst case, schedule a meeting with one of our guys or gals. By the way, it's joint.
Look at that, Dan. We got through 47 questions
Wow.
in a little under an hour. So almost a question a minute. I hope everybody finds it useful and that our answers are putting you on the right track.
Yeah, folks, and truly, we hope that this time is well spent with you. It's hard. There, as we said a couple of times tonight, there are some questions, if you understood all the facts that were shared with us, we just can't go into. We would spend a full hour just talking about the dynamics. And that's the thing that makes it so tough for us, is that we're trying to help you based on the limited facts that you're giving us. So just know this, every family is unique, but we absolutely believe that if you're using MyCap tool itself, that it really can make a difference in what things look like in the future here, that you really can be an informed consumer when it comes to looking at colleges. Chuck, that's really what it comes down to.
Exactly. Information is key. Understand your situation, understand how the business model of the schools work, and choose things that, fit your situation the best. I do see a late question that came in here on the chat. If you get a D in a senior AP class, will it result in a change in the college offer? If you've already got the award letter, my assumption is that they're going to honor it. That's just
the question is, so you have to know something. They don't want your student to show that they fell off the cliff when it came to their academics. And it depends on what the subject it is. Is it one of the core classes that they were counting on for their major that they're going into? That could be an interesting dynamic. Yeah, that's just remember, they're going to look at the final transcript. The admissions and is going to look at the final transcript. And it just depends on how does that impact the GPA compared to what they needed to qualify for the scholarships and things like that. Yeah, it could. It's a possibility. It could. Hopefully it's not going to, but just get them to do great on that final AP exam.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Listen, we appreciate you being with us this evening. Again, don't forget to use the OH15 to get a discount. And I shared the link with you for all those options that are available. We hope this has been helpful. We'll look forward to maybe seeing you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, wishing you all the very best with your college process. And Chuck, great doing this with you this evening. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Hey, before you close it off, I'm going to try and take a swing at one last one.
Go for it.
Somebody's asking if EFC is zero, is it not unexpected to be offered almost full financial coverage if accepted? No, that's not the case. You need to understand the formula cost of attendance minus EFC equals need. So whatever the difference is your need, but schools meet that need in different ways. Great schools like Rice here in Houston will meet 100% of need, but many schools will meet a much lower percentage. So you cannot expect a full ride if your EFC is zero.
Perfect.
For most schools, yeah. So have a great week, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Take care.